Thank you for joining me back here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast. In the previous segment, if you're just joining us now, we discussed the recent news that Mike McCarthy was not going to be coaching in 2025, rather taking a back seat and just waiting for the next coaching cycle to really have a proper go at it for his new team. So now in the second segment, we're going to get into some more quarterback discussions, right? We got two veteran quarterbacks with uncertain futures about a month away from free agency, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And one of them, we got a 36-year-old Russell Wilson who was on a one-year deal that is set to expire at the beginning of March. And on the other side, we got a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers who could still be thinking about retiring, as one of his possible options, or he still has one more year left on his current deal with the New York Jets. And, he could just return to New York if both parties are willing to do that. Or again, if he still wants to play, there could be another divorce, so to say, in Aaron Rodgers' near future if they decide to go their separate ways. And then, it opens up a whole nother area of uncertainties and speculation and things like that. But for right now, where both Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are, both are in very similar spots, right? Because you look at them in the season that they both had, and the excitement at the beginning of this Aaron Rodgers experience, right, only added when, unfortunately, he got hurt. He came back this year, and the excitement was there once again. He was a lot of people's, Super Bowl favorite, a lot of people's Super Bowl picks, just on the anticipation and the initial excitement. And the same thing could kind of be said about Russell Wilson, right? Because in a way, the anticipation was there. The rumors were starting to build up. Mike Tomlin ended up making the decision, and the first 6 games out of his first 7 games were spectacular. And the hope, the anticipation, the excitement also was built up at the start. But with how both of these quarterbacks ended their season this past season, all that excitement was quickly washed away and, brought us now to this point where we don't really know what to feel about either quarterback, right? If you're a Jets fan or a Steelers fan like me, you don't really know where to stand on both of these quarterbacks respectively because, some people I know, I'm sure, have their clear-cut thoughts that they don't want Russell Wilson or they don't want Aaron Rodgers to stay, or some like me that are like in the middle, like, yeah, we'll take him because what's our other option, right? And I think that's where this conversation sort of shifts to, right? Because if you're in the Steelers and the Jets spot as of right now, there's a lot of question marks on this position, right? What do you do? Where do you go? Do you stick with the same, reliable veterans that are Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson? Are you going to settle in a way for those two options after you saw what you saw this past season? Or do you potentially explore other options, right? Is that something that you want to take the risk on, knowing that, the guys out there in free agency or maybe even the draft, depending on where you're selecting, might not give you that much more? So the Steelers and the Jets are in a very similar spot because while they might have very good players at certain positions, you're not really going to go that much further than where you have been without the quarterback position elevating the people around them, right? Being game changers rather than not game managers, but just your average quarterback that you can win a couple games, maybe 8, 9 wins during a season, 10 wins if you're the Steelers, and you're not really going to be taken seriously after then, because from that point on in the playoffs, obviously, the road gets very narrow, and along the way, the weaker competition falls, and it always seems to be the Steelers in one respect or the Jets that don't even get to the playoffs. So that's kind of where both teams stand as of right now. And you look at each one of these situations specifically, starting off with the Steelers, right? You crash out of the playoffs once again, and what's interesting about them is that they also have Justin Fields standing there as well, and their owner and president, Art Rooney II, said earlier this week that he preferred to sign Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. hinting and pretty much stating, honestly, pretty bluntly, that he doesn't want a repeat of last year. He doesn't want to have like two quarterbacks because, when they say when you have two quarterbacks, you really don't have a quarterback at all because you're switching between both of them so much. Ideally, Art Rooney does not want to have that repeated, and now he's kind of backed the Steelers up into a corner, right? You're going to have to pick one of these quarterbacks rather than having just both of them come on, because it would be very easy to just say, you know what, let's just run it back and let's get better around them and give them a better shot. And I think that sort of reasoning and excuse, quite frankly, has run its course also. No one's really going to buy that anymore. So I like the fact that Art Rooney said that he preferred to sign one of them. And looking at both of them, I mean, you could tell that obviously Justin Fields is younger. He took a step forward from where you began with him to where he is right now. I would say he definitely got better just by being in a lot higher quality organization rather than where he used to be. And, he could be cheaper as well because Russell Wilson's probably going to require at least like around 20 to 30 in per year on a contract, whether it be 2 years or 3 years or something like that. Justin Fields certainly would cost a lot less in that respect. And, Art Rooney also said and kind of hinted to the fact that he would like to continue working with Justin Fields as well. And that could be subject to change in how your feelings on a certain quarterback change. And of course, if Justin Fields has other options out there that are also intriguing to him, then the Steelers could want to keep him as much as they want, or they could still be 50-50 on it, but it won't matter because, you got other teams wanting to apply or inquire about his services. So it's not just up to the Steelers, right? So that's also a different factor that you got to work into this whole equation. So it really comes down to when you put it like that, like Art Rooney said, he wants to sign either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Ideally, you can kind of say that can you say that you don't already know what Russell Wilson can give you? And if you already know what he's going to give you, is that something that you just want to run back again? Is that something that the fans are going to be happy with? Probably not. Is that something that you feel like you can improve upon, or have you already seen what Russell Wilson is as a quarterback and, we've reached the ceiling with him, ideally? That's kind of where I'm at with it. And also, on the Justin Fields side of things, right, how much more can he grow? And is it going to be enough for you to at least win a playoff game, right? Because if you go with Justin or if you go with Russ, the expectation is going to be the same. And the disappointment is going to be the same at the end of the year if they still can't get over that hurdle. So the quarterback situation as a whole for the Steelers is probably not going to get fixed this offseason, as a certain answer. But the last thing I think a lot of fans and a lot of people just following the Steelers want to see is this team run it back. So that puts Russ in a very peculiar situation. And then you go over to New York and, they failed to meet expectations, obviously, when you're talking about Super Bowl and you're talking about winning the division and things like that. There was already issues in the offseason, if you guys remember, all the way back then, where Rodgers missed a mandatory practice, or he didn't, or it wasn't mandatory for him, or maybe it should have been. There was that whole confusing bit of it when we talked about it almost a year ago. But you had certain issues like that. You have Aaron Rodgers preferring to run an offense that's familiar and that he's comfortable with, rather than being open to potentially changing some things about it. That's what's been rumored and reported. The Jets they got him Devontae Adams also on this team, but that still really didn't improve things. And on top of everything else, he's got a very weird and cold relationship with the ambassador, Woody Johnson. So despite all those issues, right, fair or unfair, it does come down to the performances. And in terms of performance, Aaron Rodgers' stats weren't that bad, to be honest. But as a 42-year-old, can you rely on him to come back, be older towards the end of next season, and think that you're going to get that much better? And is he even going to be open to, some of the new ideas that you're coming in here with Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn trying to establish a culture? Is he going to butt heads with Aaron Rodgers and things like that, right? These are things that pop up, especially when you have a new head coach coming in, because the Steelers, you know what they're going to get with Mike Tomlin, and it looks like they're going to keep all their coordinators, so you know what you're going to get there. But when you have a new brass of leadership coming in, new ideas, new attitudes and characters and things like that, that might not always go over very smoothly. So that is the uniqueness of that situation. And again, I just can't get over the fact that, are you going to be okay with going out and getting a Sam Darnold, right? Is he going to do the trick? Is he really going to elevate either of these teams that much more for a higher price? I would say probably not. And then if you look at the draft, right, it's not been labeled as the best quarterback draft in recent years. And the Steelers have already been here when they drafted Kenny Pickett just for the sake of drafting a quarterback. Everybody in the draft process and things like that would have said that that class wasn't necessarily the strongest, but the Steelers, regardless of that, drafted a quarterback, and now he's a backup, all about to win potentially a Super Bowl ring before the organization that drafted him, right? The irony. So, you have something like that happening, and, if you're not going to get both of the top guys like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, is that something that you want to rely upon as potentially a first option? Again, probably not. So, could they both be bridge quarterbacks, right? Could you bring them back in a way where you say to them, all right, well, you might not be the starter, but you could be the temporary, just bridge guy that helps us transition into something else. We're not going to guarantee you anything long-term. Are they going to be open to that? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be willing to do that? Same thing with Russell Wilson, where, again, he could be interested in other opportunities like Las Vegas, right, with his former head coach there in Pete Carroll. That could be something that intrigues him, that ends up pulling him away from Pittsburgh. That could be a possibility. And I'm just kind of like spitballing here with some of these options. It's a weird situation, right? And in terms of, who is most likely to stay, right, when you're talking about so many similarities, I would probably say, if I had to choose which one's likely to stay with their same team, I would probably say Aaron Rodgers, just because it's like really the only option for the Jets, and I don't think they're going to go out and pay somebody else to come in, or they're going to hand the keys to some rookie or like a young quarterback like Jordan Travis that they have on their team already. I think the Jets are kind of cornered into a corner a little bit more, where the Steelers obviously have Fields if they want to do that, or they could, also get a free agent guy, but they don't have many more options. They just got one more than the Jets do. So that's why I feel like the Jets and Aaron Rodgers are more likely to end up back together rather than Russell Wilson and the Steelers. And can they give you something? Can they still provide something? Yes, but not to the expectation that I think both of these organizations are, crying out for, right? The Jets would love to make the playoffs, or at least be in the conversation, right? Stop with these losing records, right? They need to have that sort of improvement come next year, you'd hope. And then for the Steelers, right, the standard is at least being in the playoff conversation and trying to win a playoff game. So the standard's got to be that, and I'm not sure that these quarterbacks really meet it. That's why there's so much uncertainty. So that's where things stand as of right now. We'll see where they move along with these topics as we get closer to free agency. But for right now, going back to the head coaching cycle, we're going to talk about the Saints a little bit more in depth. It looks like they got their top target and they're zeroing in on him as the days move along. Who is that? Who are they going after most? And do we agree on it? What are our thoughts on the Saints' top head coaching option potentially in 2025? We'll reveal that when we return after this break.